911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey guys, welcome to Behind the Crime Door. It's so good to see all of you. How are you doing? I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Saturday. So let's see who's all here. Hey Mitzi, how are you? Good to see you. Hi Jill, how are you? Thank you for being here. Hey James, welcome. Hi Dave, how are you? I hope you're well. Hi Beach Fairy, how are you? Paris, how are you, my dear? It's so good to see you. Hey CJK, how are you? Always good to have you here. Hey John, welcome, my dear. So good to have you here. I have missed you. So tonight, it's going to be a Delphi night. I'm going to talk about the upcoming court appearances that we have coming up in both cases, the Delphi case as well as, excuse me, the Idaho case. Richard Allen is due in court on the 15th, which is this coming Thursday. We're going to go over that. We also have, obviously, waiting in the wings, so to speak, which is kind of like the periphery to Delphi. We also have Kegan Kline, who is going to be sentenced in July. Oh, Beach Fairy, that is so super cool. So super cool. I love it. I love it. My spoods are my friends. So anyway, so we're going to talk about that. I've got some information that I want to share with you on all of this. I also, yesterday, they had a motion hearing in the Idaho case, and Bryan Kohberger was in court for that. I watched it, and I watched the whole thing, and then I rewatched it. And so I want to go over that with you. It got kind of, it was kind of interesting, because I feel like there was a little bit of, I don't know, the Gonzalez's attorneys seemed to be a little, not, I don't want to say combative, but he was definitely not happy with the court. And it was not the current court. This was the court that put the gag order in place back in January. So we'll talk about that as well. And so that's the agenda that I have for tonight. I doubt that it's going to be a really 2-hour long live tonight. It's just going to depend on how quickly we get through this stuff, and your comments and your questions. So I'm looking forward to spending the evening with you, as always. Quick update, just so everybody knows, on Tuesday morning, I will not be live on Tuesday morning. I will be live Tuesday night again. And that is for right now. I'm going to try to figure out if there's a way that I can get around that on Tuesdays, and I might be able to. I'm just going to have to play it by ear. I really do like my live during the day. It's so nice to be able to hit the people that can't make the lives in the evening. And for the different time zones, I love that. Hey, Melissa, how are you? And so, yeah, it's, it's kind of hard to please everybody, obviously. And I'm just trying to, I have a lot of people that do follow me that aren't able to watch the live streams. They always have to watch replays. And I would really like to be able to give them more of an opportunity. I'm also going to start now finally doing some content for my members, my paid members. So be on the lookout for that. Those will be posted. I will be posting those on my community page, as well as on my homepage of the channel when I do them. Awesome, John. Thank you. As I was explaining with the daytime lives, I have my grandson now. He's out of school until August. So I'm kind of stuck, because with he's my 5-year-old, and he's going to want to be on camera. He's going to want to be in the middle of it. So it's going to be really hard for me to do a live stream while he's here. So that's kind of where I'm at with that right now. And so we're going to see how this plays out. And we'll just see. But anyway, we'll get it figured out. And if I have to take off the days streams for the summer, for the next month and a half, then I will, and I'll start them back up again, because I really do like them. So what have you guys all been doing this weekend? Anybody out there doing anything fun with their families? Are you enjoying this amazing weather that we have here in the Midwest? I mean, I'm here to tell you this weather that we've had the last 3 days could stay around forever. Super low humidity, perfect temperatures. My daughter and son-in-law actually went swimming today and took the boys, and it was nice. She said it was very nice out. I think it's great that like I said, that the weather is what it is. We've been having some really extremely hot days, because earlier in the week it was up in the 90s. And oh, Dave, that is super cool. That is super cool. Yeah, Melissa, I've seen the pictures from New York, from the fire, the smoke from the fires. It looks so bad. I can't even imagine. Dave, I'm not sure where you're located, but yeah, I can't even imagine. Now that sounds good, Melissa. Went to Lowe's and Walmart, got beautiful flowers, worked in the yard, then had some Mike's hard lemonade, a chocolate cake with ice cream and toppings. Wow. That sounds fun. Gardening is always a good stress reliever. I love it. As you guys can see, I have plants. I have in my office here, I have plants all around me. You can only see this one, but well, you can see these over here on this side. But I have a huge picture window on this side of my office, and it is got hanging plants from the ceiling everywhere. So I love plants. Anything gardening, I'm good with. It's I love to do it. So oh, I hope not, Dave. That would be that's still, like I said, a black bear in your yard is different, is pretty wild. Hey, Purdue, how are you, my dear? Oh, thank you. I didn't do anything with it today. It's just kind of here. I didn't have time, but I thought, well, this is the way you guys get me. This is from this morning when I first got dressed. I usually try to get ready before my lives, but you guys are always so kind to me, and you always are. I just love you all. You always make me feel like $1 million. Melissa, that sounds cool. How awesome is that? That's awesome. I missed Steve's live, so I'm on the replay crew with Steve. I have to watch all of his replays. I end up watching them late at night, and I end up staying up late to watch him, because I like to, because I always try to watch him on the same night, because I hate missing anything. I'm afraid I'll miss all the Waffle House craziness. So it's just with me going live and him sometimes, him going live right before me, sometimes it's just a really hard push for me to get to him. I do try, but most of the time I miss him, and I hate that. Oh, Dave, you are so sweet. So sweet. Hey, Boston, how are you? Good to see you. So let's get started. So I'm going to talk about what's going on in Delphi first. So we have an order that was placed in his file online on May 30th. And I've gone over this before, but I wanted to let everybody know. But the defense has put in a motion to reconsider a request for a due process hearing. And that was set for this coming Thursday, June 15th at 10 a.m. So that is going to be a due process hearing. And the hearing that was currently set on his record was for bail. And it's going to be converted to a hearing on the defendant's motion to suppress. And we have already talked a little bit about that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. There was also an order placed on the 6th of June on his record for his motion for appointment of experts. And I don't see yet where that motion has been upheld or denied. So he's still waiting on an answer, I'm assuming, for that. I imagine they'll hear something by Monday. If not, it'll be discussed in court on Thursday. There's a motion that was filed on the 7th of June order on continuing disclosure of the defendant's mental health records. And there was a limited appearance for the Mystery Sheet LLC doing business as a Murder Sheet. So the Murder Sheet is trying to get public access to Richard Allen's mental health records. And I don't see that happening. I just do not see that happening. Wow. I was floored when I saw that. Hey, Jerry, you are so sweet, and it's so good to see you. Oh, I miss Drew. Doggone it. I missed it, Purdue. I missed it. I'm so mad. I'll have to go back and watch the replay of it. I'm sure it was an amazing live stream. Definitely want to see that. So, hey, Yorkie, how are you, my dear? It's so good to see you. Gosh, I just love seeing all you guys. So anyway, getting back to that, first of all, I don't know if the Mystery Sheet doing business as Murder Sheet, I don't even know what to think of that. I just busted out laughing when I saw that. But it looks like they're still wanting the scoops, and they're still trying to get information from FOIAs. I'm assuming this isn't going to happen. They're not going to get his mental health records. And as far as I'm concerned, they're wasting the time of the court for this case by asking for those. That's my opinion. I'm like, why in the heck do they think that they're entitled to that is beyond me. Those records, I get that he's a defendant in a murder case, but if those records are going to be given to anybody, they're going to be given to the prosecution. And the prosecution was denied them at this point. What the heck does the Murder Sheet think they've got above everybody else? I'm telling you, sometimes you wonder about the egos in this case. I'm serious. The people covering this case and their egos. It's mind-boggling to me. It's just mind-boggling. But anyway, moving on. So we do have a transfer order that was also entered on the record. And that was entered on Friday, yesterday. It's just the thing that they obviously do. They put on his actual court record to show that they have asked for him to be transported to the court. And you got to remember, guys, all of this stuff costs money. To transport him from the Westville Correctional Facility to Carroll County to Delphi, that is, that's big because it takes them, he has to have plenty of security and all of that to get him to and from court. So they have to put in the order to have him brought. So that's what's going on the record. Now, I wanted to bring up again information because I've had a lot of people ask, and a lot of people have actually sent me some emails on this wanting to know what they're talking about when they talk about a due process hearing. And so I wanted to go over some information on this and what due process and the rights of a criminal defendant is. This is covered in the Fifth Amendment, okay? And where I'm getting this from, and I'll have this linked in my description below, is from the Cornell School of Law, from Cornell University. So no person, this is what the Fifth Amendment says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against themselves, nor to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So what does all of that mean? Well, the court has held that practically all criminal procedural guarantees of the Bill of Rights, the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendments, are fundamental to state criminal justice systems, and that the absence of one or the other particularly guarantees denies a suspect or a defendant due process of law under the 14th Amendment. In addition, the court has held that the Due Process Clause protects against practices and policies that violate precepts of fundamental fairness, even if they do not violate specific guarantees of the Bill of Rights. The standard query in such cases is whether the challenged practice or policy violates a fundamental principle of liberty and justice, which inhere in the very idea of a free government and is the inalienable right of a citizen of such government. This inquiry contains a historical component, as recent cases have proceeded upon the valid assumption that the state criminal processes are not imaginary and theoretical schemes, but actual systems bearing virtually every characteristic of the common law system that has been developing in this country. So most of the time when we are talking about due process, when we're talking about it with a criminal case, it's where two parties are in disagreement over something and they want to be heard. They want their side to be heard. And so that's what's going on right now. Richard Allen is requesting due process. There's something that they're not getting, or something that is wrong, that they feel that he is not getting the due process that's afforded to him by the Constitution. And so, and due process says you have to have, everything has to be fair, and to have a just trial and in a civil or criminal court in this country. The laws are specific of how these things are supposed to happen. All of the attorneys, whether they be prosecutors or they be the defense attorneys in this case, all know the law. They all went to school. They all had to pass the bar exam, which is not easy to pass. I know some people who did pass the bar, but it took them 2 times to pass it. It is not an easy test, and these people are smart. So it doesn't have any, I don't think it has anything to do with that. It's just a very, very tough test. So anyway, they have to pass this test, so they know the law. They also have codes of conduct. Attorneys have to adhere by that. And that is governed by their state that they're practicing in. And they have to know what the decorum is and what is expected of them when they present into the court. When you hear the lingo, when people are talking about, well, the court says this, that is the judge speaking. The judge is the court. The judge is the one who's presiding over the court of law. So when you hear that, the court's motion or the court denied, that basically means that the judge has denied. Hey, Tech Death, welcome, my dear. It's good to see you. And so these are the kinds of things that a lot of people don't quite understand when we start getting into these cases. And it's going to get worse as we move along in this process of Richard Allen's eventual trial, because Purdue said it up here earlier, I think, about most legal cases are won or lost during this time of discovery and before trial. This pretrial period is where the best lawyer maneuvers, lawyering, wins or loses the case. And it's we're going to see a ton of this. Just like she said, everything that happens in this case, whenever there's a motion, or there's a motion to this or a motion to that, it doesn't mean that we all need to jump up and get, and be exacerbated and, oh no, and what does that mean, and all of that. These things are so common. So I don't know, Kay, why or if, we don't know that they're not going to present this case to a grand jury. As far as I'm concerned, grand juries are secret. So we don't know if there's one that has been listening to all the evidence in the Delphi case or not. We definitely know there was a grand jury that heard all of the evidence in the Bryan Kohberger case, and they indicted him. So, it's up to the prosecution on whether or not they seat a grand jury. I came out on a limb last year early and said, way early, and said I thought, like early summer of last year, that I thought that they possibly had a grand jury. And in Indiana, the grand jury can be used as an investigatory body, and not just a body to hear evidence and decide if they're going to bring charges or indict. That is not the only job of a grand jury in Indiana. They can also be an investigatory body for the state when it comes to whatever case it is they're working. So, like I said, we just don't know. And like I said, we're going to have to just kind of wait and see. I think it's going to be very interesting as to what happens on Thursday in court. I'm very anxious to find out what it is that they're trying to suppress, if it's direct evidence or if it is witnesses, or if they're just trying to suppress his mental health records. And they don't want his mental health records to be released. But I find that really, like I said, I find that really kind of crazy, because the defense is the ones who brought up his mental health. They're the ones who pointed at the fact that he was acting delusional and schizophrenic and depressed and, was in a horrible state. They're the ones who brought all that up. So for them to just come out and say, well, now we don't want anybody to be able to see what his mental, health records or what his mental health status is, I think that's just ridiculous. But that's just me. Again, it's lawyering. It's the playing the lawyer game. And man, you guys, I've been doing so much research for my a segment that I'm going to do that I talked to you guys about, and I'm working on it for serial killers. And I'm going to cover the top 10 in this country. And I've been looking and reading and doing a whole bunch of research, watching some documentaries with interviews of them, and man, oh man, some of these people, I don't know if you guys are aware of who the serial killer, the Iceman, is. You talk about somebody who is completely detached from emotion, remorse. Wow. This guy is unbelievable. He was a hitman for the mafia, and he claims to have killed over 100 people. Law enforcement doesn't believe him. They believe it's much, much lower than that. But man, I'm still, just to listen to his interviews, it's cringeworthy. So anyway, I just, like I said, I mean, just an incredible amount of research, and I've learned a lot. I think it's amazing the stuff that you can learn when you just start digging deep on who these people are and find out a little bit more about them. I watched an interview late last night with Ted Bundy, and it was right hours before he was executed. And I remember seeing this back when it actually happened, back because I followed it closely back then. But I had forgotten how creepy it is to look into his eyes when he's talking and try to figure out if he's lying or if he's telling the truth. Oh yeah, JDR, most definitely a psychopath. I mean, that person was completely just scary. I just can't even say how scary that person was. So yeah, like I said, very interesting. One of the things that it reminded me of when I was watching Ted Bundy's interview was how everybody has been talking about, Kegan knows all this stuff and Kegan's going to talk, and he has all this information and stuff. And it just was I don't know, it just reminds me of Ted Bundy was very good at manipulating people. He was very good at manipulation and lying. And he admits himself that he lived this double life. People didn't have a clue as to who he was or what he was about. And these types of individuals that can commit these kinds of crimes, these heinous, horrific crimes, you have to look at the psychology behind it. And yeah, he could be a very kind and endearing person. The people who volunteered with him at the call center that he worked for suicide prevention said that he was compassionate and friendly and caring. And we're talking about Ted Bundy here, who bludgeoned and horrifically attacked young women and had no conscience about it at all until the very end, when he was asked a few hours before his execution on how he felt. And, then he comes clean and says, well, yeah, I feel horrible for the families and for the victims. And I'm just like, do I really want to believe that? I mean, is that really true, Ted? So I think that is what's so important to remember about Kegan Kline when we're talking about him in regards to his case, because again, I believe he's a manipulator. I believe he knows how to manipulate. I don't think he's dumb. I think a lot of people have misread him, and people, there's it's amazing how people react to these criminals. It really truly is. But that was one of the things that I found interesting when I was doing some of this research, because when you are listening, you're going back to the cases that you're following, and you're like, well, are there any red flags, and what kind of stuff? And one of the things that I wanted to go over with you guys too, that I thought was very interesting, and I wanted to give you this information, and this is from the United States Office of Sentencing. It's the Sentencing Commission. I didn't even know we had such a thing until I started looking into it. And these numbers are for fiscal year 2018. It's the newest that I could find for these numbers. But in fiscal year 2018, 69,425 cases were reported to the United States Sentencing Commission. Of those cases, 1,414 of these involved child pornography. Child pornography, which is not what it should be called, obviously. It is not. It is child sexual abuse material. CSAM offenders have decreased 12.4% since fiscal year 2014, according to this commission. In 2014, there were 1,613 offenders. In 2018, there was 1,414. So that was a difference of 12.4%. This is where things get really wild. The length of mandatory minimum penalties for CSAM in the year 2018. Hey, Coach Kev, How are you, my dear? So good to see you. So third, you guys, this is mind-boggling. The length of mandatory minimum penalties for CSAM offenders in 2018, 5 years, 49.1%. None. No length of sentence, 35.1%. 10 years, 8.2%. 15 years, 7.4%. More than 20 years sentence, mandatory sentence, 0.2%, you guys. 0.2%. Oh, Kev, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much. I'd love to have you on the show sometime. So 45.5% of CSAM offenders were sentenced for trafficking child pornography, and 43.3% were sentenced for possessing child pornography, and 11.2% were sentenced for receiving CSAM. 99.3% of CSAM offenders were men. So this is a highly male crime. 83.3% were white. 9.5% were Hispanic. 4.2% were Black. And 3.0% were other races. The average age of these individuals is 41 years of age. 97.8% were United States citizens. 76.5% had little or no prior criminal history. Let that sink in. 76.5% had little or no prior criminal history. The top 6 districts for CSAM offenders were the Southern District of Texas, who had 54, the Eastern District of Virginia, which had 51, the Western District of Missouri, which had 50, the Eastern District of Missouri, which had 38, the Middle District of Florida, which had 38, and the Western District of Texas, which had 35. Getting on to punishment, 99.1% of CSAM offenders were sentenced to prison. Their average sentence was 104 months. The average sentence for offenders convicted of trafficking in CSAM was 136 months. 86.6% of these offenders were convicted of an offense carrying a 5-year mandatory minimum penalty, and their average sentence was 116 months. 13.4% had a prior sexual abuse or child sexual abuse conviction and were subject to a 15-year mandatory minimum penalty, and their average sentence was 269 months. The average sentence for offenders convicted of receiving CSAM was 105 months. Yeah, Coach Kev. How about 104 years? 87.1% of offenders sentenced for receiving child sexual abuse material were convicted of an offense carrying a 5-year mandatory minimum penalty, but their average sentence was 85 months. 2.9% had a prior CSAM conviction, and they were subject to the 15-year mandatory minimum penalty, and their average sentence was 241 months. And the average sentence for offenders convicted of possessing CSAM was 70 months. 81.0% of offenders were convicted of an offense not carrying a mandatory minimum penalty. I just don't know how we can have any offense out there regarding CSAM that doesn't carry a mandatory minimum. That just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. Another 19.0% had a prior CSAM or child abuse material conviction and were subject to a 10-year mandatory minimum penalty. And their average sentence was 138 months. Sentences relative to the guideline range, 37.2% of child sexual CSAM offenders were sentenced under the guidelines manual. 28.4% of those were sentenced within the guideline range. 2.0% of all CSAM offenders received a substantial assistance departure. Their average sentence reduction was 42.7%. So these guys are getting deals. They are being given plea deals, and to the point of their average sentence reduction was 42.7%. So 6.2% of all CSAM offenders received some other downward departure, and their average sentence reduction was 43.6%. 62.8% of all CSAM offenders received a variance. 61.2% of all CSAM offenders received a below-range variance, and their average sentence reduction was 40.1%. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. This absolutely shows that the guidelines for child sexual abuse material in this country needs to be stricter. The trafficking of our children, the sexual exploitation of them, the receiving, the transporting, the shipping, the possessing, whatever it is with this stuff that these people play with and look at and pass back and forth. These offenders need to have the books thrown at them. It just has to. And the fact that they are detouring from these recommended sentences, 42.7% and 43.6%, is beyond me. It makes absolutely no sense. It tells me how broken the justice system is in our country. It's just, and the big thing is that everybody blows up is that there's not enough jail space for all of these people. Well, guess what? I'm here to say, let the people that have the low drug convictions for marijuana and all of those offenses that have gotten ridiculous amount of sentences. I mean, my God, they give these people, 20, 30 years for trafficking marijuana, and CSAM people walk. It doesn't make any sense. I'm so sorry. It just doesn't. Absolutely doesn't make any sense. So, Dave, you be safe out there, my dear. Hey, Westeros Will, how are you? Good to see you. So I just thought that was really important since we've got Kegan coming up for sentencing. It's going to be real interesting to see what he gets for everything that he's been charged with. And I just don't think that people are aware. And the only way we can change these laws is by doing it within our states. This isn't something that you change federally. We have to change these laws within our states. And then we have to get our state senators and representatives at the federal level to go to bat for us and say, this is not acceptable. And we want the new, the laws and the punishment. We want new laws, and we also want punishments upgraded for the laws that are already on the books when it comes to CSAM. I mean, there needs to be some sort of a commission working on this. It's pathetic. And I'm tired of it, because you listen to the rhetoric going on in Washington, and they don't care about our kids, you guys. They don't care about our kids. They care more about they care more about other crap than our children, who are going to be the next generation's leaders and people taking this country into the next century. And I just don't understand how you can look at these people who are victimizing these kids and give them a plea deal. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. And I mean, it just so bothers me. And I'm like, where is the uproar for this? Where are the people that are out hitting the streets and protesting this? Where is the battle cry? It's to a degree, Mitzi, you're right, because Ted Bundy admitted he came from a loving home. 5 children, 6 children. He was one of 6, I believe, or one of 5. I can't remember. And very loving parents, devoted family. They devoted themselves to their kids. They were there. He was brought up with some religion. He just said that his life was a good one, and he blames everything he did on pornography. He said that he got involved with it at a very young age outside of the home. He found it outside of the home at the age of 12. And so that is what he was blaming why he did his stuff. Now, who knows if any of that is true, but I just know that it's the punishments for these crimes in this country against our children. They're like slaps on the wrists, and we need to do better. So, moving right along, you know, it's unthinkable to me, but, and every time I think about this, I'm just like, this is just crazy. But the FBI on their own website, they talk about their violent crimes against children program. The FBI has one. Thank God they do, because they are diligently working every single day, these men and women, to save our children. But it is unthinkable. But every year, thousands of children become victims of crimes, whether it's kidnapping, violent attacks, sexual abuse, online predators. I mean, our kids are being targeted and attacked from every angle. They're not safe at school anymore. They're not safe at their sporting practices. They're not safe at church. They're not safe in their own homes. Our kids are not safe. And they're being preyed upon by these predators in every aspect. And when people say, oh, shh, don't talk like that, Kristen, you're going to scare everybody. It's not that bad. It's bad. It's bad. The mission of the FBI's Violent Crimes Against Children program is to provide a rapid, proactive, and comprehensive ability to counter all threats of abuse, exploitation to children who those crimes fall under the authority of the FBI. Identify, locate, and recover any child victims. And we know the U.S. Marshal Service works hand in hand with them to do this. They strengthen the relationships between the FBI, the federal, state, local, tribal, and international law enforcement partners to identify and prioritize, investigate, and deter individuals and criminals that are networking to exploit our children. And we need it, you guys, because it's rampant out there. We've got child abductions that are out of control. The FBI's Violent Crimes Against Children's program, they work with the mysterious disappearance of a minor, especially one under the tender age of 12. The contact offenses against children, the production of CSAM, sextortion, domestic travel to engage in sexual activity with children, and international travel to engage in sexual activity with children. And if you guys don't believe that's happening, well, it's happening. And in Indiana, they have multiple groups that are just people like you and me that are out there volunteering and working and trying to catch these predators as they're preying on our children. The sexual exploitation of children, online networks, enterprises, the manufacturing, trading, and distributing and or selling CSAM. That's the stuff they're talking about with Kegan Kline. And they've told us that they found the largest CSAM ring in the history of Indiana because of his case. The people who traffic CSAM, the distribution or possession of it, and obviously the people who are manufacturing it. International parental kidnapping, wrongfully retaining a child outside of the U.S. borders with the intent to obstruct the lawful exercise of parental rights. It happens every day in this country. We have non-custodial parents kidnapping their children, and a lot of them take them out of the country. In 1932, you guys, Congress gave the FBI jurisdiction under the Lindbergh Law to immediately investigate any reported mysterious disappearance or kidnapping involving a child of tender age, usually 12 or under. There does not have to be a ransom demand, nor does the child have to cross state lines or be missing for 24 hours before the FBI will become involved. Their field offices respond to cases involving the mysterious disappearance of a child. All reports of circumstances indicating that a minor may have been abducted are given immediate preliminary inquiry to evaluate evidence, circumstance, and information. If a case is found to be warranted under federal law, the FBI immediately opens an investigation in partnership with state and local authorities. Child abductions by strangers are often very complex, and time is of the essence for these cases. The FBI's child abduction rapid deployment or CARD teams are deployed soon after an abduction has been reported to local FBI field offices, FBI headquarters, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or in other cases when the FBI determines an investigation is warranted. Child sexual exploitation investigations, many of them are undercover, and they are conducted in the FBI field offices by Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking task forces, which combine the resources of the FBI with those of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. Each of the FBI's 56 field offices worked investigations developed by the Crimes Against Children program, and many of their legal attaché offices have coordinated with appropriate foreign law enforcement partners on international investigations. Several of these investigations are also worked in coordination with Internet Crimes Against Children task forces, which are funded by the Department of Justice. And furthermore, the FBI supports training for federal, state, local, and foreign law enforcement agencies involved in these investigations. And we saw this in Delphi because they sent Jerry Holman to Quantico for training in the fall of 2017. And at the time, he was the head investigator for Delphi. The FBI, in conjunction with domestic and international law enforcement partners, investigates U.S. citizens and permanent residents who travel overseas to engage in illegal sexual conduct with children under the age of 18. These cases are exacerbated by the relative ease of international travel and the use of the internet as the platform for individuals exchanging information about how and where to find child victims in foreign locations. And if you think for 1 minute that it's just happening in foreign locations, you're wrong. It's happening here in the States. And it's one of the things that I've heard people talk about when it comes to Kegan Kline in his case. Why was he talking to girls so close to home? Most of these people are dealing with people away from their personal location, their personal living logistics. The FBI, in conjunction with domestic and international law enforcement partners, investigates U.S. citizens and the permanent residents, as well as those parents who have been accused of kidnapping their children and taking them overseas so that the court order for physical custody cannot be carried out. And based on the considerations, they pursue criminal action in an international parental kidnapping case, and it's done on case-by-case basis. They work closely with the Department of State and the Department of Justice. And it's very important to understand that the United States and the FBI does not have investigative jurisdiction outside the United States, except on the high seas and other locations specifically granted by Congress. They have to work through their existing partnerships with international authorities through the U.S. Department of State, their legal attaché program, and Interpol. And if you talk to Natalie Holloway's parents, they had to go through this nightmare in Aruba when Natalie Holloway went missing, and Joran Vandersloot was hip-hopping around Aruba in and out of jail when they were trying to get him for the murder and the disappearance of Natalie. Now, with that being said, he was just extradited this week back to the United States to finally face charges for his involvement in trying to defraud money from the Holloways, from Natalie's mother, regarding Natalie's death. So, just so you know that the FBI does have a wanted by the FBI parental kidnapping site. They have a site for missing children. They work diligently with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So the child abduction rapid deployment teams, the first few hours after these children are abducted are critical, and that's why they established CARD teams in October of 2005. They're composed of experienced personnel with a proven track record in crimes against children, especially cases where a child has been abducted by someone other than a family member. These team members provide on-the-ground investigative, technical, and resource assistance to state and local law enforcement. The teams work closely with FBI Behavioral Analyst Unit, or the BAU, the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime coordinators, and Child Exploitation Task Force members. I do believe a CARD team was dispatched to Delphi when the girls went missing. CARD teams are capable of quickly establishing an on-site command post to centralize investigative efforts and operations. Other assets they bring to the table include a mapping tool to identify and locate registered sex offenders in the area quickly and accurately, national and international lead coverage, and the child abduction response plan to guide investigative efforts. And in 2004, the FBI began its Endangered Child Alert Program, which is called ECAP, as a proactive approach to identify unknown individuals involved in the sexual abuse of children and the production of sexual abuse material. ECAP is a collaborative effort between the FBI and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and it seeks national and international exposure of unknown adults, referred to as John and Jane Does. There are FBI personnel that are assigned to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to review information that is provided to NCMEC's cyber tip line. The tip line receives reports of children's that are either missing or being sexually exploited via online, and they use an online form where you can actually, where you can actually request that information or that tip go to them. NCMEC also maintains their 24-hour hotline at 1-800-THE-LOST and on missingkids.org. These FBI employees that are assigned to NCMEC work to identify individuals suspected of any of the following: possession, manufacture, and/or distribution of CSAM material, online enticement of children for sexual acts, the child sexual tourism, and/or other sexual exploitation of children. Once the potential suspect has been identified, investigators compile information and forward it to the appropriate FBI field office for further investigation. The FBI does have a child ID app. It provides a convenient place for parents and caregivers to electronically store photos and other vital information about your children or grandchildren so that it's literally right at hand if you need it in an emergency. You can show these pictures and provide physical identifiers such as height and weight to security or police officers on the spot. Using a special tab on the app, you can also quickly and easily email this information to authorities with a few clicks. The information is stored only on the user's mobile device and is only transmitted if the user sends it. This app is free to download on Android and Apple devices. And just so you guys know, I do subscribe to the FBI email notifications of any ongoing investigations for crimes against children and their news about arrests. And it's unbelievable the amount of emails that I have to filter to a certain folder in my email because I get so many of them every single day. It is unbelievable the amount of men in this country that are being caught and charged with CSAM. So like I said, thank God we have them, because there's nobody else out there that's doing a damn thing to care for our kids. The legislators aren't. They certainly want the children to be born, but they don't give a crap for them after they're here because they're not doing anything. They're letting these predators go. They're giving them reduced sentences. The sentences that they do have in place are so lenient, it makes your head spin. And like I said, once you start really delving into this stuff and really looking at it and peeling back the layer upon layer of it, it is absolutely sickening what's happening. And I am definitely not happy about it. So we just need to really focus on it and work collectively to try to make it better and to change it. Because That's one of the things that bothers me so bad right now in this country when you hear people talking about pro-life. They're not pro-life, they're pro-birth. Because if they were pro-life, this shit would matter to them. They wouldn't be cutting funding for it. They would be screaming at the rafters to get this stuff taken care of. So let's move on and talk about Bryan Kohberger. So today, when I was, I did a couple of things this morning, and then I was watching stuff from yesterday, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, when he walked into court yesterday, sorry, I got to get a drink. My voice is going out because I got really mad there for a minute. You know me, I don't like to get political on my channel, but it's hard not to get political about some of these topics. And especially when we're talking about our children and the fact that nobody seems to care. So, yeah, JDR, exactly. So, for everybody that's been following the Idaho case, in January, there was a gag order that was put in place by the judge at the time in the lower, that was handling the proceedings before it actually got assigned to the trial judge. And the gag order is, people say, well, you know, why do judges use gag orders in the first place? Well, a gag order is typically just a legal order by a court or government that restricts information or comment from being made public or passed on to any unauthorized third party. And there's a lot of gag orders, but when we're talking about gag orders, when we're talking about things that are happening in the court of law, because gag orders can happen regarding keeping your trade secrets as a business, stuff about military operations, protecting the privacy of victims or minors. They can also be abused. And they can be a useful tool for those of financial means to intimidate witnesses and prevent the release of information. And that's their way of using the legal system rather than other methods of intimidation. Gag orders are sometimes used in an attempt to assure a fair trial by preventing prejudicial pretrial publicity. But this is very controversial since they are a potential unconstitutional prior restraint that can lead to the press using less reliable sources, such as off-the-record statements and second or third-hand accounts, or podcasters who say they have sources. I mean, my God, look at that in the Delphi case alone. How many times they've been considered experts on Delphi. It makes me so angry. They've not even followed this case for 6 years. They've followed this case for maybe 2. Maybe, if we're lucky. I don't even think it's been 2. But they're so-called experts, and now they're everywhere. So the pretrial publicity that they're talking about is a real thing. It's hard to not get that kind of publicity if you are having your attorneys and your the lawyers and the police officers and anybody, your prosecutors, anybody who is involved in the case speaking on it, whether it be in interviews, on television, in written print, wherever it is. It can be highly discriminatory to a fair trial, which is guaranteed in the Constitution to all of us. And there are many out there that believe that gag orders limit the freedom of the press. And it's a way to do censorship and restrict access to information. So what happened yesterday in Idaho is that Kaylee Gonzalez's parents' attorney was heard in court, who he had filed a motion a long time ago about the gag order and the fact that his clients should not be held under the gag order. And what he was arguing in court was the fact that they're not going to be called as a witness in the case. They're not going to have to testify to anything. And so and he's not, so there's no reason for them to be restricted by this so-called gag order, because it shouldn't apply to them, is what he was arguing. And he said that they don't have information about the case from the prosecution. The police have not interviewed or talked to the families regarding the case. This is the things that he said in the court of law. And it was really interesting to watch this. Hey, Rose, how are you? And so, yeah, it was, like I said, it was really interesting to listen to this back and forth. The judge was like, well, I didn't, I'm not the one that ordered this, but I am here to uphold it. And, he was talking about how you've been on TV. Your clients have been on TV, that we're not holding them to this. But there was a huge argument back and forth. And it was real interesting to see when Bryan Kohberger walked into court yesterday in his suit and how different he looked compared to how we've seen him in his red jumpsuit that he's had on. And I don't know, I was just taken back, I think. He still has that strange stare that he has in his eyes. It's just something that bugs me about this man. But yeah, that's what the hearing for Bryan was yesterday. Basically is that's what they want the gag order rescinded for the Gonzalez family and their attorneys. And they were, the court was saying, well, you're not really held to it anyway. But when he made the comment that they hadn't been interviewed or they hadn't had things shared with them, the prosecution took offense to that. Oh, thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for being here and for supporting me. It was interesting when the prosecution stood up and said that wasn't true and that they doggone did. Share stuff with them, and they did talk to them and interview them. It was just quite interesting. If you guys get a chance, go out on YouTube and watch it. It's not that long of a proceeding, but you really learn and get to see how things happen in court. Until you are there, sitting there, you really don't have a clue. And it is extremely eye-opening. But gag orders, like I said, are common. They're used all of the time in courts all over the world, not just in the United States. And there is a good reason why they do it. There's a reason why they say they don't want people talking about the case. Yeah, exactly, JDR. And it was just like, what is it that you want to say that you feel you've not been able to because of the gag order? Because they've been on TV, they've been interviewed. Even the judge said that, because, I don't really get it, but I understand, and good night, Mary. And so enjoy the movie. I don't know. The more, like I said, the more I watch these proceedings, the more I think, I shake my head, and I'm just like, sometimes I think these lawyers and such want to hear themselves talk, because it just didn't make a whole lot of sense today. And even the judge was like, why are we arguing this? I'm agreeing with you. It was kind of ironic, actually. And you got to remember, the court that was the other thing that happened in court. The last time they were in court, I think we all talked about this a little bit. I told you that the judge was reading, he was reading the charges against Bryan, and he stumbled over the names. He stumbled over Xana's name, and he stumbled over Kaylee's Gonsalves's name. And he apologized today to the families for that. And he explained that he had very little sleep the night before, and that he was not in a good mental state that day. It was highly emotional for him. And that intrigued me, that he actually owned up to that and apologized. I thought that was big of him to do. And to do it on record right there in the court. And I hope that helped make the families feel a little bit better, because he did, like I said, he did stumble over that with them, But yeah, Bryan looked completely different today, yesterday, you guys. I have a picture of him. Let me see if I can pull it up. Hold on. For those of you that haven't seen it, I have to find it. It was, oh, that's not it. That's not the picture. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. Okay, guys, I'll share this. I'll share my screen with you. For those of you that didn't get to see this, because I do think it makes a difference when you visually get to see what he looks like. That's him right there. In his suit and tie. And he was paying attention to everything that was being said. He was very attentive, I noticed. looking around his, he was constantly moving his head, moving his eyes, looking around. The families were not in court, from what I understand. They were on Skype watching this proceeding. Yes, most definitely Purdue. Although I would have to say, Bryan does not have the charisma that Ted Bundy had. Bryan doesn't come off to me as charismatic at all. He does not. So, yeah, it's funny, John. That always used to be the big takeaway for criminal court. You had to look your best. You had to get a haircut and clean up, and your lawyers always had to make sure you had a good suit and necktie and all of that. Yeah, Dave, that was crazy because I saw his shoes and I was like, what? He wore tennis shoes to court? I didn't know what his shoes were, but he had some weird shoes with the white soles. But yeah, it's funny what people latch onto in these proceedings or any of these cases. They'll sit and talk about stuff knowing that 4 people were brutally murdered, and that's what we're talking about here. It shouldn't be about some attorney's footwear, shouldn't be about an attorney's hair or a beard or whatever it might be. We are this society is so bizarre to me about how they cover people, how people cover things, and what people on social media especially want to talk about. It's just crazy. I do get mind blown by it, and I have to step back and say, okay, I need a mental break. Hey, Lone Pony, how are you? Thank you, Mitzi. Thank you so much. I do have a lot of passion about this topic and this subject and the genre and how we cover these cases, and it really does mean a lot to me. I worry about the victims' families and how they're treated, how things affect them that are being said in the media. It's just, to me, like I said, it's heartbreaking because when you stop and think about, put yourself in their shoes, and if that was your child or or your grandchild, and you were having to listen to all the things that were being said about them or being drug up, and it's just crazy. Yeah, Dave, it's not about how you dress. I do think there's decorum that should be ordered for the courtroom. It's just something, I'm old school that way. And I just feel like it's out of respect, kind of. It's just how I feel. For me personally, I don't care. I mean, if you show up and you show up, that's the most important thing, not whether you're dressed nice. It's the same thing for people who go to church to be seen. They have to wear the best clothes and dress a certain way. And it's not because they feel comfortable that way. It's because they care about how other people think of them or see them. And God doesn't care. We were born naked to him. He doesn't care if we have what we're wearing to church or whatever, and that's how I feel about that. It should be the most important thing is that you're there, that you showed up, not what you're wearing. It shouldn't be a contest. And the court should be the same for that. And again, it goes back to means. There's a lot of people out there that find themselves in need of representation and being in a court of law for whatever reason, and they don't have the means to go out and buy a 3-piece suit and look, dress the nines and dress the part. They don't have that ability. And so it's funny how we as a society judge people on appearance, isn't it? Hey, Bridget, how are you, my dear? How are you? Oh, honey, trust me. I do. I'm glad you're here, darling. Thank you so much for being here. I just think it's really telltale of what's going on in our country. And it's been this way for a long time. It cracks me up when people say they make such a cute couple. What the hell does that mean, guys? He might beat the crap out of her at home, but boy, they make a cute couple. I mean, it's just, it's not about looks, you guys. It is not about looks. And we need to get away from that. We need to stop raising our kids, about beauty and all this outward beauty crap. It's all about what's in here. That's where you become beautiful, is how do you treat people? How do you treat people? That's where your beauty comes before. I just, like I said, I just think it's so funny. It happens so much in Hollywood. We have this thing with our Hollywood stars, all of us. I do too. I mean, we all do. We've got the people that we, the movie stars that we love, or the singers that we love and that we follow and that we're fans of. And, we're all like, what's she wearing? What's she look like today? What's he look like? It's not so much about, can they act? Can they sing? Can they play an instrument? Yeah, it's one of the things that I always loved about, I don't know if you guys ever watched America's Got Talent, but it's one of the things that I loved about Susan Boyle. She won that show, and I can't remember what year it was. I'd have to look it up. But here she was, this little housewife from Scotland, and, she comes out on stage, and does she look the part? No. In fact, Simon Cowell was quite mean to her, I thought, when she first came out, and was not that friendly to her. She had on this kind of like house dress. She wasn't all done up. She wasn't all made up. And what was so amazing is when that woman opened her mouth to sing, the entire place went silent. It was amazing what came out of her mouth. And she went on to not only win the competition, but become a world-renowned singer. Oh, he was horrible to her, Rose. Horrible. I remember it well. It made me mad. I was like, it's, we have become such a superficial society. Everything is so superficial, and it really does bother me. I'm glad I didn't raise my, I'm glad I didn't raise my daughter to be that way. I'm glad that I raised her to not be superficial and to not judge people by that, because it's just wrong. Every aspect of it is wrong. And yeah, I'm off my soapbox about that. But anyway, I don't know how I got onto that on that track, you guys. But we went from Bryan Kohberger to Susan Boyle. I'm not sure how that happened. Chalk it up to my craziness. I think that's probably what it is. It's probably that. I'm really, really sorry that I missed Sleuth's live. I will definitely be going to see the Evansdale live that he did, because how important is that? And Drew was there in the chat. So that's really important. I want to definitely make sure that I get to see that. Oh, thanks, Bridget. She's very real and down to earth. Oh, you're so kind. She has really made me proud. She is a great mother. She is a fantastic mom to her 3 boys. And I'm very proud of her. She's become an amazing cook. When she was 16 years old, I would have never, ever thought that girl would keep a clean house and keep, and cook. And she is amazing. I can't say enough. So I'm very proud of her. And I'm glad that I've been able to share her with you guys. And, we've occasionally done shows together, and we will continue to do that as time warrants. She will be done with school here real shortly. As you guys know, she works in the school system. So we switched currently here a year ago to they go all year round now. It's an all year round schedule. They don't get that big break in the summer like a lot of school districts do. And so she only gets 4 weeks. I think it's 4 weeks off. And then she's back to work. Or no, I'm sorry, take that back. She gets 2.5 weeks off, and then she's back to work. So, yeah, there you go. But it's kind of nice because they get a long break in the fall. They get a longer break at Christmas, and then a longer break at spring break. And so it breaks it up throughout the year. And then the kids don't get so bored with nothing to do during the summer. Because again, a lot of parents don't have the means to send their kids to camps and to do all these things that some kids get to do. And then kids end up in trouble. So I think it's a great thing. Oh, hey, NL, thank you so much. Yes, it's very cruel and hurtful. And we need to be more mindful. I know that I was raised that words matter and that words do hurt. I know growing up, we always sang the song that sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's not true. That is not true. And you can tell yourself that and sing that song till you're blue in the face. But words hurt. And sometimes people just say the most nastiest things to people. And all they want to do is hurt them. And as we're sitting here talking about serial killers and murderers and people who do horrific things to children and people and all of that, stop and think about those people that sit behind these objects. They sit behind this keyboard right here. They don't know you. They don't know me. And they will sit there and call you every name in the book. They will tell you how awful you are, how stupid you are, how whatever you are. And it's just crazy. And we think, at some point I have to ask myself, do these people have undiagnosed mental illness? Do these people need to be seen by mental health professionals? Because it's just not a way. Oh, Bridget, it's right here. I've gotten better. John will tell you I have gotten better. Hey, Mitzi, you have a great weekend too, my dear. Stay safe. You guys, I've gotten better about not knocking myself out of the live streams with the mouse. You have to admit, I've gotten better. So, but yeah, that's my rant for tonight, you guys. I won't rant at you anymore. But yeah, I enjoyed looking all this information up for you. I wanted to touch on some of those points. Again, talking about what's going to be happening in the courtroom, talking about what's going to go on in court, because those are the things that are going to actually be happening. And it's okay, John. We miss you. And when you can make it, we love that you're here. John's been with me from the beginning, you guys. And he's very near and dear to me. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Please make like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed my video, because it does help me out. Thank you to everyone who continues to send me PayPal donations, who send me my beloved buy me a coffees. I don't drink coffee, but I buy me a tea. I appreciate those so much. You guys are so kind when you think about me. And, you know, for everybody who comes here and supports me any way they can, I so appreciate you. I appreciate it. And you guys are wonderful. And for anybody watching the replay, thank you for being here as well and watching. And Tech Death, that's hilarious. I was born a nudist. I don't know about you. Oh, God. You guys are so funny. But have a great night and be safe this weekend. If you get a chance, please be kind to someone. Pay it forward. Love to all. Talk to you soon. Good night, everybody.